Are you ready for a bit more before lunch? Yay! I would like to ask everybody to start settling. If you already want to come up, come up. Our panel is already assembling. I'm sitting, yeah, I'm going to be here. We're all here, it seems. Welcome back, everybody. I hope you all had a lovely time with this last parallel session. We certainly did in this room. And here we are. This, I have to say, is one of Clean Cities' most favorite topics. When we started working on SUVs and the size of cars, we could not imagine the momentum that would be built within the space of about, 12 to 18 months. So we're extremely excited to have this distinguished panel on stage today. But before we just go into it, I just wanted to draw your attention to a few facts. So I guess that many of you know that cars in the last decade have grown 1.2 centimeter longer, half a centimeter taller, and half a centimeter wider every single year. And I'm sure that those of you that were here yesterday, we alluded to it in our opening as well, that it is absolutely crazy. When you look at a Nissan Micra, and I'm sorry, I keep bringing up the Nissan Micra, but it is absolutely unbelievable how it has ballooned, and it's unacceptable what it does to our streets. It's unacceptable what it does to our climate, the need for materials, and more importantly, our streets and our children and our safety. And it's deeply, deeply cultural. In London, actually, we call these things the Chelsea tractors. Why on earth in London would you need these things to get around? And then when I talk to these mummies, these yummy mummies in Walthamstow, they're like, well, they're kind of safer. And I'm like, sure, they're safer for you. They're not safer for all of us outside. And all the children, your child's best friend is more likely to get killed by this thing because you want to be safer and you don't really need it. Do you really have like 5 children and 3 dogs? Because maybe then it's justified, right? And also, how many times a week do you actually use this thing? Most of the time, cars are parked outside on our streets or on our driveways. Those of you who have it, in London, not many of us. But it is absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, that is the passion that Clean Cities feels about car spreading. And so I'm extremely happy to be moderating this panel with our distinguished panelists today. So Alex Prem from Lab of Thought. Give it up to Alex. Actually, and I should have also gone to the ladies first. So Sofia Navaskoka from Transport and Environment. Anna Goodman from Transport for Quality of Life. Sorry, she's an academic and does a lot of things, but that too. And finally, of course, James Ward from the SUV Alliance. Welcome. So thank you so much for accepting to be here. As you know, Clean Cities is a big advocate for stopping car spreading. We need to do right sizing. And I don't even know which order we're going to go today, but we're going to have about 5 minutes from each speaker. Then I'm going to take a very quick question from the audience after each speaker. And that is how we're going to run this session right now. So, Sophia, I would turn to you first. Yesterday, Transport and Environment, and I think a little bit of Clean Cities, was all over the media because of your fabulous work. Tell us more about that.
Right, so yesterday was the big day for the Ever Bigger report. I'm going to present this shortly, and it was in The Guardian as well, so on BBC, so you can read about it. But basically, so I'm a data analyst at Transport and Environment. This is a Brussels-based NGO, and I work mainly on EU policies, but also together with Clean Cities. We have been criticizing the car spreading over the past years. So if we go to the next slide, I don't know whether... So 2024, we had a report called the Ever Wider Report, where we found that vehicles grow 0.5 centimeter wider every year, like new vehicle registrations, leaving less space for other road users. Then, in 2025, we had a follow-up report called the Bonnet Height Report, or Ever Higher, where we found that bonnets of new registrations grow taller every year by 0.5 centimeter every year as well, which poses a threat to our safety and especially the safety of children. So just to picture this, why is it a threat for safety is the left image, where you see that a low-bonneted vehicle, if you have a collision with a low-bonneted vehicle as an average height adult, it's going to strike you at the legs, so you're going to fall onto the bonnet and being deflected to the side, which sounds quite dramatic, but the fatality risk is actually lower than if you have a taller bonnet, which strikes you at vital organs, you get knocked under the vehicle, your head falls into the ground, and the fatality risk is higher. And this the higher the bonnet, the higher the risk of fatality is especially acute for children. And another problem for children is visible on the right-hand side, which is the visibility problem. So children, the bigger the bonnet, the bigger the blind spot, which is like one of the main reasons why children are endangered by high bonneted vehicles. So now to the 2026, so yesterday, our ever bigger report. So basically we have been following the past 25 years, vehicles have been increasing. And the question that we ask is, where does it stop? Like when we just have this, there's no reason to believe that it's going to slow down right now. It's just a linear increase. And we wanted to project until 2040 what could happen. And basically, two worlds are possible. And we call the one world the current trends, where we just, until 2040, would just continue with new vehicle registrations increasing. So we have bonnets by 2040 that are over 90 centimeters high. So I'm not even 160. So it's more than half of my body height. So it's not only about children. Of course, children are important, but also mainly about women, which are often smaller than men, but also just adults in general, all vulnerable road users. And so this is the current trend scenario. And then we compared with a world where we go back to vehicle dimensions by 2040, which we had between 2010 and 2015. And we call this the right sizing scenario. So basically we have these two scenarios, one linearly increasing dimensions and one curb the trend. And now we assess the difference between these two trends in terms of safety, which I'm going to cover in a couple of seconds, then also in terms of oil and electricity consumption and urban space, but this I won't cover now. Okay, so what we found in terms of safety is that right-sizing cars, so following the right-sizing trend, could save 2,000 or close to 2,600 lives of vulnerable road users of all age groups. This is cumulatively over the next 14 years, looking at Europe, and so 2,600 avoidable lives that current trends could lead to if we follow the trend because of higher bonnets posing a higher fatality risk increase. Now, specifically about children, right-sizing could save nearly 80 more children until 2040, so 80 or nearly 80 avoidable lives, or just following current trends endangers 80 additional children that could die. And this is quite striking and important to note, and this is why we ask, so we have the following policy recommendations to curb ever bigger cars. So first, we want to introduce a large vehicle levy, so a tax paid on purchase to disencourage people from buying heavy and large cars. Then we want to cap the bonnet height at 85 centimeter and introduce a cap limit at 1.92 meters. We want to rate the vision of children from the driver's seat of new cars, and also this also affects the Euro NCAP, and want a child vision standard in law. Fourth, we want to vary parking charges by size or weight, which is also being introduced in some cities across Europe. And last point, we want to grant advantages to small electric cars in the UK. So there's already a proposal in the EU and want us to be also accepted in the UK. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophia. So many mind-blowing facts there. Okay, so we have time for one question. So I'm going to go like this because I don't want to be biased. And when I open my eyes and I look at the first direction, that's the person I'm going to take. So are my colleagues ready with the mic? Okay. Okay. Person in the green.
Thank you. Fantastic presentations. My question is, I understood that car manufacturers needed to meet regulations regarding pedestrians outside the vehicle. I seem to recall in the 1990s adverts from conventional cars, as we would now call them, not SUVs, talking about how good they were in such situations. Do those regulations not exist, which has allowed this to grow and grow?
So basically, well, there are regulations, but basically they are not enough. So for example, so there is this individual vehicle approval, which allows you even this kind of loophole to circumvent the regulations that are already in place, which is the reason why you see some even like some Ram pickup trucks that are gigantic and that actually shouldn't be allowed. But then also the regulations right now are not, so the Euro NCAP is just, it has nothing mandatory in place. I'm not the policy experts here, but we want basically to be them more stringent. And yeah, I refer also to clean cities for that because I'm a data analyst, so I cannot give you specific details for now. But maybe if you want to come in, Ollie.
Sorry, yeah, just to jump in. So there are vehicle dimensions, but you can currently build a car as wide as a truck. So it's all based around heavy-duty vehicles, and that's why they're getting so wide. For the safety, there's no bonnet height regulation whatsoever. In fact, it's hardly measured. So that's why this report's actually been quite groundbreaking in that. And as for the safety Euro NCAP policy, and where they actually take it through a voluntary safety testing procedure, which most manufacturers do, it doesn't have a forward vision test for children, and that's why we're now seeing height and bonnets, and then also lack of visibility. Also with the A-frame as well of the vehicle, there's a fantastic New York Times article out this week. Do Google it. It shows you visualizations of the issue as well.
Thank you so much, Ollie, for that addition, and thank you, Sophia. And now, moving on to Anna. Anna, so good to have you. Please tell us.
Hey, everyone. Lovely. So, I'm an academic, and I have done various bits of work in this space. Which one is it? Perfect. So just as a bit of context for why this is something which needs policy action, so as this is a different way of saying the same facts about cars are getting larger, this is looking at the share of SUVs over time. You can see a huge increase. So London from 3% 20 odd years ago to 30% of cars on the roads now SUVs. This is part of why I think action is needed, because it's going fast in the wrong direction. You'll see here, I work a lot with clean cities. I routinely steal their graphics, which usually is fine, but now these are the same ones you'll see from me as you've just seen from Sophia. So I think this is the same thing Sophia talked about. Just the phrase which I always use is thinking about cars as magnifying and externalizing road danger. So magnifying, meaning a system with lots of large cars is overall more dangerous than a system with small cars. But the externalizing bit is it's not the people inside the vehicle at the greater risk, it's pushed out onto everyone else. The one inside is slightly safer. And so I think this is exactly why you need policy action, because we don't want magnification, but also if it's externalized, the consumers won't make that choice by themselves. And then this is just another way of showing the same thing. So it's the smaller you are, the more the higher bonnet height kicks in as a mechanism, which is why we expect to see children at particular risk. We looked at this in UK data last year. So when we looked at road traffic crashes for the last 20 years or so in the UK and saying if all else equal, you're hit by a regular passenger car versus an SUV, what happens? We see the same thing we expected. So children at greater risks. So for adults, if you're hit by an SUV, 15% greater chance you're killed if you're a pedestrian or cyclist. For children as a whole, it was 44% greater. And then for the smallest children, so 0 to 9 years old, it was nearly 3 times greater. That's 182%. So again, fitting in with this is an issue for everyone, but particularly for children. Also, you've just seen this slide before, but in terms of indirect danger, this crowding out other road users, blocking space that might be used for safer infrastructure. And then there's an additional indirect way which larger cars harm people, but particularly children, is also thinking about when you're trying to cross the road, you need to see what traffic's coming. So for the 96% of time when these cars are not being used, they're being parked on the curbside. Traditional passenger car, kids can see over them, both sexes, age of 11, the age when most kids are starting to go about by themselves. For your average SUV, a boy has to wait till 14 to be able to see over it. The average woman never gets there. So like you said, it's particularly kids, but also about women. And then for the new typical large SUVs we see more of, so Range Rover Sports, even the average UK man never can see over it. And it both increases road danger and just makes our streets feel much more car dominated. All you can see is a wall of cars. I think that was the last of my slide. I thought I might have a plug on the final page. We've done, for anyone thinking of doing a policy in this space, we've written an SUV toolkit where this, together with Clean Cities, where we have lots of kind of nitty-gritty technical questions. So, which metric, height, size, what data sources you have in the UK, these sorts of things. So if anyone thinking of actually implementing this, you could have a look at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. So as with the previous speaker, we have time for one question. So I can do my equitable approach here as well. Any hands? Oh God, Alice, I apologize.
Hi there, I'm Merav from the Royal Town Planning Institute, taking notes furiously. I have a question. I don't know if this is like a sort of question the RTPI would ask, but I have a background in campaigning and all sorts of things. I'm wondering, has anyone thought of trying to sue the motor industry? I can't believe that this is legal. Can we do a class action? I mean, they're just designing stuff. They know what the impacts are. The people who make these things always know, more than anyone else. Why are they doing it? They just want to reduce the children and the women who are always getting in their way. What is it?
You're just giving us a great idea there. I don't know if any of our friends from Klein Earth are here, but if you are in the audience, yes, hello. Maybe we need to talk. But yes, we do have friends who are specialized, in legal matters much more so than we are. So perhaps you've just, started something.
And just as a comment on the why, I think it's been the kind of the upselling of a vehicle that used to have an SUV if you had a field and you needed to drive across it. It's now just a kind of new normal. You see the same thing again with 7-seater vehicles, where it used to be if you had 4 kids you might buy one. Now they're becoming just a normal luxury car. So I think that's the why, is they have higher profit margins and it's a type of upselling. As to the, good luck with the other parts. Yeah, sounds good.
Thank you so much, Anna, and thank you for the question. Now we're moving on to James from the SUV Alliance. And feel free to use one of those. Otherwise, we'll be leaning over each other here.
Testing. There we go. Hello everyone. Hello everyone. Is this working? I can't really tell. Hello everyone, for the third time. So I'm here with kind of multiple hats on, SUV Alliance and also Ad-Free Cities, where I work. And I'm going to be speaking about a piece of research done very recently by myself, Ian Walker, who's here today, and Jimin Choi from the University of Swansea, based on some YouGov polling that was done earlier this year. And we were trying to understand what British drivers understand about SUVs and road danger, where their knowledge comes from, and how that impacts on their purchasing decisions. So I'm just going to give a kind of brief snapshot to that research now. So we asked respondents in the survey, do you agree that SUVs and pickup trucks pose a greater risk to other road users than smaller cars? Hint, yes, they do. However, 66%, so nearly 2/3 of driver's license holders in Britain do not know that, do not agree that SUVs are more dangerous. So only 1/3 gave the correct answer to that question. Amongst SUV owners, it rises to 86% who do not know that the vehicle they're driving is more dangerous. Just interestingly, actually, the younger drivers, 18 to 24, showed a greater awareness of the danger. Nearly 50% of them agreed with the statement, and older drivers were the least aware. we then asked, so thinking about your next vehicle, how likely is it that you would buy an SUV or a pickup truck? And again, quite interestingly, so the two leftmost bars here, that's nationwide. So only 24% of drivers actually said that they wanted to buy one of these cars. Far more said that they have no interest. In London, the two middle bars there, slightly lower. 20% of London drivers want an SUV or pickup for their next car. But when we look at the rightmost bars, the script is flipped. So this is SUV owners currently driving an SUV. 80% of them, 4 out of 5 SUV owners want another one as their next car. So essentially, if you are driving an SUV, you're going to buy another one, and if you don't, then you won't. Respondents in the poll were then shown 1 of 6 kind of mock marketing images, 3 of which were quite traditional marketing images, like the one on the left, and then the other half had these kind of mock tobacco-style warning labels saying, you know, this car is more dangerous because of its size and weight. After showing respondents one of those ad images, we then asked again, having seen this, do you agree that SUVs and pickups pose a greater danger? And this time, there was an uplift in awareness. So a 28% uplift in awareness overall, kind of differentiated between non-SUV owners, who were 31% more likely to agree that SUVs are more dangerous, versus only 20% of SUV drivers. So again, there's this quite significant difference in how drivers respond to that safety information, depending on what kind of vehicle they themselves drive. We then again asked, thinking about your next vehicle, how likely is it that you would buy an SUV or pickup? And so amongst drivers who said that they would like an SUV or pickup for their next car and were then shown that safety information, so in full knowledge that they are more dangerous, 94% said that they wouldn't shift their buying intention. So even telling people that their vehicle is more dangerous will not stop them buying one. So there are a couple of implications here. First of all, there's a massive information deficit. Only a third of people know the facts of the matter on this issue. And the second one is that soft policies like those tobacco-style warning labels will not shift people's buying intentions. Hard policies like vehicle tax, weight-based parking levies, etc., are going to be required. Now, we've already heard a little bit about those hard policies. I think we're going to hear some more. So I'm actually just going to pick up on that first point, which I think is quite interesting, because I think we know from experience, particularly thinking around like LTNs, that when policy moves too far ahead of public knowledge or public awareness, that is when you risk getting a backlash. So I think it's worth just pausing and reflecting on, well, where does public knowledge about SUVs come from? You know, why are so many people in the dark about this? And my job is challenging like the influence of advertising, so that's why I'm gonna land on. I think advertising and marketing does have a big role, does have a lot to answer for here, in terms of creating the image of the SUV as a kind of safe, comfortable family car. Like, I mean, this kind of very far from scientific survey of advertising. I mean, I pulled this off the web in like 30 minutes of the way, kid-proof comfort, or, in the back of an SUV, the kids are calm, family SUVs, Instagram influencers. This is like a mum influencer, and she's talking about her new SUV, fully electric family car. The way that they are sold to us reinforces this idea that they are fundamentally safe for the people inside, but the people outside are forgotten about and just erased from the conversation completely. So yeah, I don't have time to go into sort of more detail on the solutions, but if you'd like to catch me later or drop me an email, I'd be very happy to chat. Thank you.
Thank you so much, James. Wow, I cannot believe that 94% of those owners still want it after knowing the facts. So we have a lot to do, guys. And so, yeah, actually, we have one question time, and I already see lady in the pale blue.
Hi, Etive Curry from Glasgow City Council. It just struck me as you were talking about the advertising. Maybe we should bring back the test crash dummy adverts that ran in the 70s and update them to show the dangers of SUVs and larger vehicles. So along with suing the car companies, bring back more hard-hitting advertising.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, again, like the research shows, kind of soft policy interventions are limited, but there is that knowledge gap that needs to be filled. And I think, yeah, public authorities have a responsibility. Be great to see, there's the Think campaign, the government Think campaign. Could there be something there on car spreading? Local authorities do actually have some power here in terms of public space advertising, to restrict the kinds of adverts that are seen on, for instance, bus shelters or some billboards as well. And Edinburgh, back in 2024, I think it was, introduced restrictions on SUV advertising for precisely that reason. And we're kind of lobbying other councils to do the same. TfL could do that.
Thank you so much, James. And now we're moving on to Alex from the Lab of Thought.
At the Lab of Thought, we like to radically rethink things at times. And this spring, we sat down together with our chief sort of rethinker, Professor Marco de Bremmelstoet, and the brilliant minds of Solve the School Run and also Clean Cities to question, we care so much about the safety of our children, but they have no voice in how we design cities, how we design our roads, how we design our vehicles. So we were like, let's change that. Let's ask them how they actually feel in our public space, on our roads. So children, are you here? How do you feel in public space?
It makes me feel either really scared or really overwhelmed, especially the big SUVs.
Okay. And what about you?
It makes me feel a bit excited, but also really scared at the same time. Kind of like, oh my gosh, there's a car next to me. Well, oh my god, it's next to me. Oh, don't run me over. Ah.
So it seems to be the big SUVs that have a particular effect. What should we do about them?
We should get rid of these types of cars because it's a lot of pollution and also they're too big and they might kill like 4-year-olds or 5-year-olds.
And what's the biggest issue? Where do you see the biggest problem?
They can't really see other little kids.
Our children across Europe feel invisible on our roads. The monster is not under the bed, it's out on the street. And we as a species are putting it out on the street to keep our loved ones safe. And we've put so much effort as a society into creating vehicle safety ratings. And look, from the new Mini Cooper to the big new Land Rover Defender, everything gets a 5-star top-notch safety ratings. Even the pickup, have a look. And those vehicles are brilliant at keeping our children safe until our children step out of the car. And our safe cars are getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is not just a problem for our children's friends and our neighbors' children, but guess who's most likely to run around your big SUV? Your own child. And it's not just SUVs getting bigger and we buying more of them. The blind spots that we have while riding those SUVs, while driving in our cities, is getting bigger and are getting bigger, bigger, and bigger every year, making our children more invisible year by year by year. Our children were right in that they feel invisible, and we are making it worse year by year by year. But wait, and I've already heard a comment about we have those crash test dummies, right? Those brave sort of heroes who crash cars all day long to keep us safe. But also they get out of the car in the end. And what happens to them when they get out of the car looks like this. A leg and a head. That's what all of you are like to our best vehicle safety standard. And that's how you are represented. Now, does anybody feel represented by this? Should the safety of our cities be defined by this? And by the way, these are to adults and to children. It might be a bit hard to say on this. we have created invisibility by design, a heartless process that creates many blind spots, quite literally and literally. So the safety rating is designed from inside the car out. And we were like, yeah, but how about we zoom out and reevaluate the entire story? So we ran a thought experiment with university students from some of the best universities all over Europe, students from many different disciplines. And we asked them, okay, imagine there is a road, like here, but the car was never invented. There is no infrastructure for cars. Cars just don't exist. And now somebody comes up and is like, I've this new invention. It's a bit big, but it's really quick and can get you everywhere. And it's your decision if we allow it on our streets and under what conditions. And the students came up with a new scoreboard of 9 categories, all somewhat similar important on what that should look like. And let me walk you through this real quick. On the top left, we have the collision safety, outside and inside the vehicle, and the crash avoidance. Quite similar to what we are already doing today to some degree, but they're equally important. Their weights are equally important. On top of that, the students identified the speed profile. How fast can the car actually go by our citizens, you and me, in every city? The sight lines, as we've heard so often today already, the blind spots from the driver's seat, as we've seen on that picture earlier, but also in general, how much of sort of our view in the city is blocked by those cars. Noise pollution, air pollution are really important, and as we've heard in that new brilliant study, also the space demand. How much space do cars actually take up in our cities? Well, and how different is that, for example, to a bike? And the last bit, which was really interesting to me, is the secondary societal cost of putting that vehicle on the road. How does that impact our health, our loneliness? How does it impact the quality of life in our cities? And after this exploratory study that we have run, I would like to invite all of you now and the swarm intelligence that we have, those brilliant ideas in this room, to rethink together on how we should actually reevaluate safety. Create a safety rating that is not focusing on the people inside the car mainly, but focus on everyone the car meets. Whether that is you having a cup of coffee outside, whether those are the construction workers in public, those of us who play on the street, or also those inside the vehicles, of course. So safety and the city, how about we design that in a way that cares deeply about everybody the car meets?
Thank you so much, Alex. Mind-blowing. We have time for one question. And the lady here in black or navy.
Thank you. I'm just wondering if, thank you for all of the great work. I'm just wondering if any of you has worked with the driving DVLA, basically, because they're responsible for, bringing the new generation of drivers and licensing these people. So I think people study for the theory tests, read, and when I did mine, I didn't see anything about SUVs, but I think there's a chance of speaking to new drivers who are coming into the road. So just a thought there.
Really good. Do you want to take that?
I had a bit of trouble understanding it with all the noise. Could you summarize that question for me real quick?
Do any of us work with the DVLA?
And the DVLA being the road safety.
Driving training. Yeah.
The driving training. Yes. The research, sort of teaching people more about the negative effects and whether that is, now I think you've summed it up quite beautifully, about SUVs, but research also shows about speed limits. It has almost no impact. And there was a vehicle safety conference in the States, I think it was the 70s, of the most brilliant safety experts on the road, lowering speed limits, thinking about speed limits, and they did a survey, stood outside the conference center with a radar gun and checked how quickly those safety experts are driving compared to everyone else. And turns out, the people who know most about vehicle safety drove the quickest.
Okay, well, I think I can take one more question from the audience, and that can be to any of the panelists, of course. I'm trying to pick someone who's not been on the stage today.
I was going to say, it's a bit of an abstract question. Like, what is an SUV? Because the term SUV has been kind of changed so much that like small cars are now called SUVs. So what would we say an SUV is? And is there a risk that smaller cars becoming SUV type cars? Is that also a big risk as well?
Yeah, there's no definition on what is an SUV. It comes from sort of the movement in the United States to build big cars that can't actually do any rough stuff, but just have a high driving position. And now we have those city SUVs, which are a bit smaller, but equally high. And there is, I think, a big risk in terms of also electrification and cars becoming slightly taller because of the battery pack at the bottom, that more and more cars are SUV-like, but there's no definition. And even if you look at how NCAP, the organization who really looks into the safety of all of those vehicles, with lots of blind spots, are defining SUVs, and it's wild. It's a mess, really.
It's like a marketing term, because people want, they're trying to sell SUVs, they call everything an SUV. And from a research perspective, how does that work? Because what you define as SUV? Sorry.
So I mean, you're right. It's an industry term. So any of you planning a policy, you can't say we're going to tax SUVs. That's the reason you use it, so for comms, people understand what an SUV is for communications. At the moment, when we looked, its height is overwhelmingly what distinguishes them. And actually, there is currently a clear gap. So it's this higher wheelbase off the road. And current cars, the ones called SUVs, do sit, notably higher than the shorter ones. But of course, as soon as you have to define your policy in terms of something objective like height or bonnet height if you had it. I think in terms of all the cars becoming bigger, there's a really important population health concept of it's not any shift in the average. So everyone, 2 minutes shift extra exercise day at the population or whatever has very big effects. So I think it's true. It's about all the cars becoming bigger and the way this feeds through. It's not just that there's a few cars that are enormous. And I think that is exactly the problem. All the cars are becoming bigger. The ones that aren't called SUVs are still becoming bigger. The ones called SUVs are becoming bigger. It's a full shift of the distribution. And I think recognising that, using SUVs for comms, but using weight or height or something objective to bring it down is the way to deal with it.
And that's what we call car spreading. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to our wonderful panel.